Hello and welcome to session 2 of Schoolscape Future of Work. We're so excited to have everybody on today. We're so excited about the overwhelmingly positive feedback we got from the last session. We have a jam-packed lineup again today. And really, I just want to say a massive welcome. Welcome to the event. Welcome to all the educators. You know that you're our favorite people in the whole world here at Schoolscape. So we hope that you've had a great Monday so far and all looking for hopefully a little bit of time off on Wednesday and maybe Thursday and Friday, depending on if your school's off or not. Please use the chat bar for anything you'd like to communicate, any questions, anything like that. Say hi, tell us what school you're from, tell us what you had for breakfast. We're open to anything. Yes, please join in and engage with us and enjoy today. There will be, again, a link happening for anyone that would like to get some CPD points from this session. If you're a teacher, there's the link. Please fill that link in. And if you don't get it right, just email me at ashley@schoolscape.co.za. I will then resend you the link. If you, for some reason, can't finish this recording today or can't finish the live session today, then this recording is available following the same link after the session, and you can send it to your friends or anyone else that you think it would be valuable for after you've watched it by sending them the same registration link that you registered on. We will be posting polls throughout the day, so that's just some ways to engage, but also a great way for you to connect with some of the speakers and the companies that are going to be presenting today. So we have tried to balance out a great pool of tools and tricks and discussions from industry experts with schools and the experts working in the field of gaining and helping schools guide students through this process well, of going from an adolescent to a child or a youth to a young adult and having to make a horde of different decisions. So today we'll really be looking and focusing on tertiary education. So we're super excited. We know that not every student in South Africa has the opportunity to go to a university, to even go to finishing matric, to getting into some kind of tertiary setup or college. But today we are going to focus on those students that can and that have the desire to, and what are those options out there. We'll do a good balance between state university and every other option you can possibly imagine that is offered in South Africa to kids that don't necessarily fit into the mold of going to university. We will also be looking at, in the third session, non-study options. So if you're thinking, well, I have half a class that's going to study and the rest, they're not going to study, and how do I help them? Next week's session is all about developing kids' skills that aren't necessarily the type that are going to go study, and showing you exactly where the places that they fit into our economy and working in society, and those kind of tools and tricks that they need to have to get good jobs after matric. So, but today, getting back to today, someone said the other day to me that every child should have the opportunity to go to university, but not every child should go to university. I thought that was really enlightening, and I probably couldn't agree more. But in saying that, we want to enable and help the kids that can go to university and have those opportunities to go to university to support them best to be successful at their study career. So first up in our agenda, I'm very excited. We have a lovely lady named Lelani Cloete. She is the head of Department of Life Orientation from Polrus. So she is got the beautiful job of guiding a bunch of boys into their future studies at the age of 18. So I think she's got a ginormous task, but she is going to come and explain some of just her journey with the boys and some of the things that have really worked, her wins, some of her challenges she's overcome, and really her role she feels like as an educator in this regard. So Lelani, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. And
thank you very much.
Any more of your time, over to you, and enjoy Lelani's incredible presentation.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. So like you've heard, my name is Lelani, and I've been teaching life orientation since 2008 at Polrus. And this has been the only subject I have been focusing on for numerous years, and that has been such a privilege. I do not think a lot of teachers have that privilege to focus on one subject only, especially life orientation, and I do value that. So today I will be combining my knowledge I have based on my teaching experience, but also being a subject head, life of learner support, but also being a student in Masters in Educational Psychology. My topic is called to be a potter of potential. I think people listening in today and watching this, you are called to be a potter of potential, to realize that you can manipulate a learner's or a child's potential. You can invest in them, you can equip them and enable them to be a better version of themselves. I see that as an absolute privilege. I do always have a very realistic perspective on things. So I do take into account that within a school system, we are regulated by bells and also by budget limitations. So with that, I always take it into account that one has to be realistic and that one must have a realistic expectation, but also to see how one can be creative within that boundaries. So if you look at this, you will see I do value the traditional way of looking at career development, that learners must have a balance within career knowledge, but also self-knowledge, and that those two aspects have an interplay and that it differs from time to time. So learners develop at different times and they are exposed to different things in life, and that is why one must always keep that into mind. I always say to our parents and our learners that it's like going on a race, except for in school, this is still a practice round. And we have to equip our learners before they go out in the race of life. So we must control what is within our control. We must ensure that our learners' petrol tanks are full. Maybe that for you is ensuring that they are academically equipped. Maybe you must ensure that their wheels are pumped. Maybe that would be emotional support. So there are numerous ways in which we can equip our learners to be to enable them that when in my mind it's a flag, but apparently it's not. But when that alarm goes off and the race starts, they are ready for the race of life. At my school, we prioritize holistic development. And I think later on you'll see why I say this. This is a very intentional process. So we have had to take time out of our schedules, combine different groups of staff to discuss how can we be intentional and what does our learners need and when do they need this. So we have this holistic view based on developmental stages of our learners, and to acknowledge that our grade 8s need something different than our grade 10s and they need something different than our grade 12s, for example. So this is an intentional process, so it keeps on going, and the conversation also must keep on going. We brainstorm continuously to see how we can develop our learners, what they need, and how we can meet that need. And this forms part of a very complex scaffold. And this scaffold is based on self and also career knowledge. And this is an anchor in career development. So how do we do this? We try in numerous ways to create a place of belonging. Why do we do this? So that our learners can feel safe and comfortable to be able to develop, but also to discover. So if you listen to the first webinar, you will remember how important it is for learners to discover, but they must feel safe, and our learners feel safe when they have, most of the times, a place of belonging. How do we do this? We create mentorship programs, for example. This is where our grade 8s receive a mentor, a grade 12 mentor. So on the one hand, our grade 8s feel that they're not a number, there's someone looking after me, someone has my back, but also with our grade 12s, being a mentor, we give them extensive training. Also, it evokes their critical thinking. Grade 8s ask them difficult questions, and they have to plan and develop skills to be able to mentor a grade 8. Further on, we have a lot of extramurals, sports, culture, volunteer work, where learners can participate and where they can make new friends. Also, we create socials for our learners, even in the COVID-19 pandemic, because we realize in this developmental phase, it's crucial that they social. This is what they need for now. So we try to generate doing activities because our learners otherwise just turn to their screens, to their cell phones or to gaming. So by doing activities, they connect with each other. And then that creates a place of belonging for them. Further on, we have initiatives like we have a WhatsApp group per grade. So that we actually have two, because our grades are about between 250 and 280 learners. But when it's a learner's birthday, the grade receives a message and the teachers receive a message stating that it's the learner's birthday, and the learners feel as if they are acknowledged and they are seen in this big school. Further on, we try to generate a lot of one-on-one connection opportunities between the learners and also the staff, or the juniors and the seniors, because this is how we connect in the end, and that's how we create empathy, and we work with our learners to deepen their self-knowledge. So how do we use life orientation as a medium for facilitation in career development? I had to realize that as a teacher, I am the primary instrument. The energy that I bring to my class is the key to unlocking the world to my learners. Our learners are extremely connected to a lot of platforms, but a lot of times we see that they don't have a lot of insight. I have the role to create and also modulate the missing link for my learners, and to believe that our learners have the potential to learn even without realizing. For me, I challenge myself to think outside of the box. You have your specific context. Maybe you're a psychologist, maybe you're a HOD, maybe you're a life orientation teacher and you don't have all the resources. But still, we must challenge ourselves to think creatively and to think about new ways of doing things. I also have the role to educate. I educate our learners, but also staff, parents, and community, and sometimes other life orientation teachers as well. Being the silent whisperer of influence, not making big waves, sometimes making little suggestions or making a comment, not offending people by it, but in the end, having a big difference. So I do see myself as an influencer in the end. When I look at the life orientation curriculum, you'll see on the left-hand side, there's a snippet of a textbook. So I used to actually sort of mitigate this content, and I used to say, it's irrelevant, the boys won't like it, I'm not going to do it. But now I understand that this content has a very important part in the scaffold we are trying to build. So I need to realize that it is important, but I had to be challenged to ensure that I, in a relevant manner, convey the content to our learners. So I had to start looking at alternatives. I would go to Teachers Pay Teachers, or primary schools mostly, Twinkle, for example, or Teen Active, to look at resources that are relevant and that is challenging enough for our learners to engage with that. But that the content is important, I had to acknowledge. When I was in grade 8 or in standard 6, my teacher very boldly on his wall painted "No guts, no glory." And many years thereafter, I still remember those words. And when I'm challenged, I say to myself, no guts, no glory. So I think it's so important to realize that our words have power. Within that frame, we challenge ourselves at school. So we have changed, not really changed, we kept the curriculum, but we have made it a Polworth flavor specifically for our grade 8s. So we still stay within the lines, we still cover the content, but because of COVID, a lot of the curriculum is online. So we took that curriculum and we made it relatable for our learners. We would, for example, in a boys' school, rather not call it friendship, but call it brotherhood, or focus on the value of gentlemanship within yourself, within your direct community, and within the broader community. So to think creatively, and then we changed all the colors to the school's colors, etc., because the learners already buy into what the school stands for. Our grade 11 curriculum, we bought a license for Achieve Careers, which is a wonderful curriculum, 100% on par with international discourse fantastic curriculum, a challenging curriculum. So we bought that for this year. So for me, it's important that we start being creative within the boundaries. Still, not stepping on toes, but being relevant. This is a metaphor I use in class or in my office. In my office, I would build it on the floor. I would explain it to the learners sitting in front of me, and sometimes also to the parents. Or in class, depending on my class and their age, I would either use a PowerPoint or I would just explain it to them. So to realize, like we heard in the first webinar as well, that career development is not the beginning and the end. Like many of our parents still believe, you need to make a decision in grade 9, what subjects are you going to take, and that will determine your career, which is not the truth. So I explained to my learners that your career development is like a journey. There are different segments in this journey, and sometimes unplanned events happen. A tree might fall over on your route, and then you either have to call in some help, your support network, or you must find an alternative route. Then we would discuss, and I'd ask them examples. What might happen that is an unplanned event? Further on, I use the magnet as their life calling, and make them realize that they are also guided by their interest, their personality, their aptitude, or their scholastic performance, and also the values and the exposure they've already had and still going to get along the way. And further on, I think it's so important to tell our learners, you have a positive future. Enjoy the view. It's going to be good. There's a lot of bad news, and I think as teachers, it's important that we give them the positive side as well. How do I create buy-in? So sometimes I would get into class and say, oh, guys, I don't feel like working today. And they're like, yes, we're not going to work. And then I say to them, who read the article in the news on X, Y, or Z? And then we would start having a conversation, and the learners would love having this conversation. But at the back of my mind, I have all the theory going. And in the end, I had a very intentional lesson, but I had the buy-in from my learners to, in the end, influence them, being the silent whisperer without them realizing, but having a very interactive lesson. Further on, we use assessment, very intentional. So our grade 8s, we focus on self-knowledge, again, within the boundaries of, for me, it's WCD, which is necessary. Our grade 9s, we give them different careers and they must present it to the class to elaborate their knowledge on different jobs or works, the world of work. Grade 10s, we send them on a community service project where they must develop their own skills. Their self-knowledge must be developed. When now we're doing a remote project where there must be fundraising or social media awareness for an NGO, for example. Then also our grade 11s, they job shadow, and with Achieve Careers this year, they will do a virtual job shadowing. And then to come back to class and ask reflective questions so that they can hear each other's thoughts and they can actually reflect on their experience. And that is where the connection happens. So that's important to me. We also have a grade 9 subject choice orientation day where our psychologist speaks to the grade with general guidance. And then every subject head must come and speak to our grade 9 group every year and explain to them what their subject in the senior phase is. We also give them a booklet which was created by the subject heads so that it's insightful and a useful tool for their decision making and that they have an informed decision about their subject choice in the senior phase. Otherwise, we see a lot of learners dropping subjects and they in the end missing information which is necessary for them to be part of the scaffold. And then also nowadays we make videos of the subject heads speaking to the learners and then we send it to the parents. We are also very intentional with our assessments to develop their skills. So when we send them off to tertiary studies or to universities, for example, then part of the assessment would be that they can actually complete a Google form. So it would be one aspect of a project. For example, in grade 12, we asked them to create a screening tool and they had to use Google Forms for as part of their assessment. So we checking their content, but also developing their skills. Or in the grade 10 community service project, they don't give us a hard copy project, they must make a website. And then we review the website in the end as part of their assessment. We ask them to create webinars, to make videos. So not to think, answer question, but to think, how can I develop my learner skills whilst I am actually also checking content with them. Further on, we do try to connect needs and resources. So we have a Google Classroom where all tertiary institutions information goes on. Careers Fair, for example, we allow visits to classes. Eduvelopment last week and the week before came to see all our classes. Well done to them. Veea, he'll speak just now. And then also, according to need, we do great presentations. So if it's bullying, but we call it building or breaking brotherhood, so we make it like what they want to hear, but we do great presentations so that we can strengthen them, so that they feel safe, so that they can develop who they're supposed to be, so that they can go into the world adequately enough to be able to connect with the careers world. Further on, we, for example, do pre-recordings. Our psychologists would record things like study skills, and then we know that our whole grade 8 group, 288 learners, got the same information. When we use different teachers, we don't know if the same information is given to all the classes. And then also we host parent talks according to need. We realize our parents need support and they need insight. It might be the first time that they're a parent of adolescent. Maybe it's the third time, but it's the first time they've got a third child as an adolescent, and all personalities differ. So we would, for example, kick our year off with the grade 8's survival guide to grade 8 parenting. So we want to take hands and sort of create a triangle to be able to support our learners so that they can develop and become who they're supposed to be. Also on our website, so if I think and I believe in a resource, I would then post it on our website and state that this is an external resource. And then my second last slide, almost done, Ashley. Okay, so just my last slide. With tertiary studies, I want to say, I agree with Ashley that there's a lot of pressure from parents that all learners must go to universities, and that's not the truth. It's my role to identify learners who love school, who like reading, writing, interpreting, etc. Because tertiary education is a gift, and some learners don't have the ability to see the gift. But also for me, I must know that some learners, some babies start to walk at 12 months and others at 18 months. So I must have my radar on for when a learner is ready to receive this gift. But I must know what options are out there. I must also know, for example, that the university is 70% based on theory and 30% on practical, and what learners will benefit from that. So to conclude, one must create a safe space for learners so that they can develop at their own pace. This will allow learners to find fulfillment and enjoy their career development journey. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lelani. It was great to hear those really practical tools and challenges to I think many LO teachers that are on today. I think that if you're an LO teacher, you I want to say a jack of all trades and a master of all, not of none. I think that you have a ginormous role to play in the school. But yeah, so we appreciate you. We appreciate your insight. We appreciate what you're doing with the boys at Polrus. And if anyone has any questions for Lelani, please feel free to post them in the questions bar. She can have a look there and she can answer them. But thank you so much. And have a lovely afternoon. And we really appreciate all your insight.
Thank you, Ashley.
Up next, we are going to move our focus a little bit onto still tertiary education, still the study route, but what institutions are out there that are really focusing that are non-state institutions. So I've had quite a few talks lately with the team from 3RC and Kay, the founder herself. And so her whole view on it is they focus on non-tertiary education, non-state specific university education, but the ginormous amount of other educational institutions out there that focus on specific skill development, that focus on entrepreneurial courses for a year, that focus on chef school, beauty school, all kinds of different things, business school. And this might be the right thing for many learners, not to tackle on a 3-year, very, very focused on in-class, tough university course, but maybe there's something that fits students better. One of my favorite things that Kay and I recently spoke about was the challenge of parents in this regard. And so I think all the teachers are going to relate to Kay so well when she kind of crosses that boundary. But yes, Kay, welcome. It's lovely to have you here today. And I'm really looking forward to what you have to share with us and the insights and the new trends that you can share with us in the world of non-state university studies. So
Thank
welcome.
you so much, Ashley. I really appreciate it. So to, firstly, the team at Schoolscape, thank you so much for putting this together. To have a conference like this and to finally having the platform to speak about my pet project for 20 years is amazing. I'm absolutely blown away. Thank you so much for all that are involved. Then I just want to say, Lelani, thank you very much for what you do and the intentional way of making sure that those boys have the career guidance that they need and they know themselves before they leave school. It is amazing what you're doing. So I want to have this a little bit bigger, so I'm going to do that. I've been tasked to speak to you about private studies and the options of the future. So to do that, I have to take you back a few years. So 3RC started working with schools 20 years ago. Yes, 20 years. And we have had the privilege of seeing the change of tertiary education as well as the change in certain schools. So I wanted to take you here. When we started out 20 years ago, private tertiary education was for those kids that didn't make it into government institutions. For a few that didn't quite get the marks right, or they couldn't quite get the administration right, those are the ones that applied to the tertiary institutions that we then presented at that time. So I want you to think sports related, arts. It was also for those learners that didn't have the inclination to get a full degree, but was happy to get a certificate or diploma and would allow them to then go into the working world. That was their main aim. So our first year, we had 4 colleges that was part of what we had as our presentation for the Rocking Future Career Expo. And it grew from there to now being 26 institutions that accompany us to all of the schools that we go to. And we are unfortunately turning them away because there's just not enough time to actually spend on all of those specific colleges. So this is what it looks like when we go to a school, right? We try our best to make it interesting for the learners. It is not based for parents. It is not specifically based for some of our teachers. Some of them say we make a noise, but the kids love it. And we give them the opportunity to investigate all of the study options away from your specific university education. All right, so our expos are based on giving learners an opportunity to look at a different way of studying. So that is not just going to tertiary education that is away from the government institutions, but it's also guys that would possibly work all online, or some that would have days that they would have to come in, some that would do full degrees like you would get at the university level, and others that would do very practical courses. And we are firm believers that our learners need to find something that they're going to enjoy because they're going to be doing it for a very long time. All right. For those that don't know 3RC, and I've seen so many of our teachers on the listing here that is already on the chat here, I wanted to give you a quick indication of what it is that we can do for your school. So we only take up 2 hours of your time. We bring in 26 institutions to your school, And during those 2 hours, we do a career day for you, all bunched into 2 hours that you don't have to pay for, that you don't have to organize. We do it all for you. We have found over the last few years that so many of our teachers love what we do because it takes the strain away from you having to sit down and phone each one of these colleges and universities to come to your career day. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of organization, and we want to take all of that away from you. Okay, so as I said, we do it in a young, vibrant atmosphere. We have MCs, we have music that plays. Most of our representatives from the different colleges are all young. They speak the lingo, they know the answers that they need to give to these learners. And we try and make it an example, make it an experience that the kids are going to walk out and go, number one, that was fun. It wasn't boring. Number two, it's given me so many more options than I've had before. And number three, maybe there are some other ideas that I can go through with mom and dad on possible career choices that I have never thought of before. All right. I see not all my pictures have come out, but it's okay. So all of this went very well. And I said for 20 years, we do roughly 250 schools per annum. And then COVID hit. And the pandemic forced us, like so many other places, to go online. And we created the 3rcvirtual.com platform that kids can go and use and teachers can go and use for having a career day at school that you can't bring so many people into your class. So the multimedia content that we have on the virtual platform is quite unique. It is very new. It has a 3D feel to it. Learners can go and walk around and see all the different institutions that are available and ask the questions that they need to online. So one of the other things I wanted to show you is, so these are the different stands that you can go and look at. And all of these little things here are buttons that they can go and press on and get information, brochures, they can look at videos, they can contact the guys directly. And what this has done for us, it has actually opened up our level of communication with so many different schools. As I said, our live show can only do a certain amount. We have to finish our live shows before the end of May, before our matrics go into their July, June exams. And hopefully by then they know what they want to go and study afterwards. But we've also realized that now teachers can use this for the younger grades and give them the platform to play around on, to get the kind of information that they need, find the colleges that offer different degrees and diplomas and certificates in things that they never knew existed, number one. And two, a place where they can find information to give to mom and dad, because as I said earlier, and Ashley reminded me of, our biggest problem so far, and 20 years later, would still be parents that has a certain mindset of what kids should do after school and where they should go and study. I just want to get to my next page here. So, let's look at the expanding options that has arrived over the last few years. It was very early on in the Career Expos that I decided to dedicate my time and focus specifically on private colleges and alternative study options. I realized that most learners knew about the universities close to them. So in Gauteng, everybody knew about WITS and UJ and UP. And in Cape Town, everybody knew about UCT. But nobody knew about places like the Animation School or the Exercise Teachers Academy. And I wanted to make sure that these places had the platform to speak to students and allow them to study different things in a different way. Once I started doing this, I also realized that there were so many misconceptions from both schools, teachers, parents, and learners that we found so difficult to break down. So these are a few things that I'm going to mention to you. So they always thought that private institutions would be more expensive than public. They didn't provide a proper education. So, for instance, a degree from Varsity College would be totally different from a degree at WITS. They also said things like that it was for, and I'm going to put it in inverted commas here, for the dumb kids that couldn't get into university. And that industry still prevented degrees or preferred degrees from state universities to those from private colleges. These were all barriers that we needed to get through, and we did, and we're breaking them down still today. So not only did the amount of private institutions increase over the last 20 years, but also what they present and what they make available to learners. It has taken many years, but slowly but surely the perception is changing, and conferences like these and amazing teachers that we deal with on a daily basis have given us the platform to make sure that learners know what is available. So, what changes have happened in the last few years? I'm going to mention a few for you that we have realized on our side, and I'd bet to say that there are many more, but I'm going to start with the industries like IT, networking, game design, music production, started seeing that the graduates out of university were behind the curve with the fast development of the changing world. So to change a curriculum at a university level takes years, and then years to implement that. So by the time that it was incorporated into the learning, it was already outdated again. So these companies started investing in private colleges and making sure that they have the best tech and the industry leaders teaching these students that would make the right employees for them to employ. With the continuous technological changes that happened around us daily, jobs have been created in the last 10 years that never existed before. I'm going to give you a few. Social media manager, influencers, blockchain analysts, podcast producers, cloud architects, esport gaming coaches, to name but a few. And this has all happened so quickly, and these are the qualifications available at alternative study institutions that we represent. So private tertiary and alternative study options have produced wonderful alumni over the last few years, and those have gone on to be lecturers at those colleges and universities and influencers in different industries. There is also a new trend towards companies looking for school leavers rather than graduates. We have seen big companies like Google and Tesla announce publicly that they would rather employ school leavers with a passion for their craft than graduates where they have to teach them things from the start again. In our country specifically, and I have to mention it, the political changes also had a big impact, and it has become a matter of stability and a guaranteed education to send your child to private education. There's no danger of strikes, violence, or other political interference while they are trying to get their degree. And then we cannot negate the massive influence that this global pandemic has played in uplifting the image of alternative options. During this time, these colleges and universities, and I'm speaking about universities that are specifically overseas, had to pivot to meet their students, and they have done this seamlessly. So I would like to state categorically, and I have to do this, that I have nothing against public universities, please. They play a very important role in the careers and the choices like engineering and medicine and law, but I believe more than ever that private and alternative studies should be spoken about and presented to both learners and the parents at a much younger age. Unfortunately, we still see that parents and sometimes teachers and schools push the sentiment that without a university degree, you will never be successful. The strange thing there is that most of our private institutions have the degree courses that is exactly the same as those from state universities, with the extra benefit of industry-related work and practical experience. I understand that teachers and parents that are not in this daily, and most of our participants here are in this daily, don't know these things, and therefore they can see that it is not equal. I'll be finished just now, Ash.
No problem. Yeah, another minute.
All right, cool. So, to get back to the original question that was posed to me, is what do we foresee in private tertiary education in the future? I would say that we're already seeing that these companies are thinking about the world of work in 2030. They're already preparing their kids for that. We are seeing flight schools now qualifying guys to be drone pilots, and media colleges sending out qualifications to be a VR and a gaming specialist. I think this is amazing. Slowly but surely, we are moving away from career choices around the big five: business, law, engineering, medicine, and accounting. And naturally, these are incredibly important for the economy, but it's not the only thing out there. Our kids will not have to, in the world we occupy today, our kids will not have the world we occupy today. And it is our responsibility, ours, the people on this group, to make sure that we lead them into a different direction. It is sometimes very scary. I had a matric student with me last year, as in my son, and to go through the process of making sure that he knew exactly what was available and allowing him actually the time to take a gap year to find himself was hard for me. Being in education, I wanted him to go and study, this is what I do, but mom had to step back. So it is scary. And I know that for our offspring, it is very hard to make these decisions, especially when there's so much pressure around it. One of the biggest changes I see coming from the private tertiary institutions is that of global thinking. That we have found so many times in all of the clients that we have. They are preparing their students to fill global demand, not just what is necessary in South Africa. And I find that very interesting and very exciting. We also foresee that continuous learning will become the order of the day. Spending 4 years at uni will not be enough anymore. And companies will now be searching for people and students that are willing to learn new skills the whole time. So our perception of education will change from something to be completed to something that will never end.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Kay. That is just, it's so insightful. I think it challenges and tackles a bunch of challenges that as educators that I know that they're facing in terms of getting students well acquainted with what is out there and how much actually is available to them in South Africa. I think that we really have to start to broaden our perspective on private options opposed to state universities. And I think there is, as you said, there's always a place to become a doctor and a lawyer and an accountant, and a university is the best place to do so. But I think I am seeing incredible innovation coming out of private institutions that are training our kids to be incredible things these days that I don't think we could have dreamt of when we were heading into our studies. So thank you so much. Thank you. We'll see you a bit later again. We're going to chat a little bit more to 3RC in a panel discussion in a little bit. And so, yes, thank you, Kay. I'm going to drop you off and we're going to prepare for our next little insert. So I just also want to give you a heads up on what the rest of today is going to look like. We're going to have a quick chat from Veea Group. Now, Veea Group is a new company to South Africa, and they are coming in with an incredible program that they bring into your school. They're completely customized for your school, for your learners, for your demographic, for your diversities, and then present that to your school. They co-labor with you, and then they bring that in to come and align with the curriculum that you have that's existing. So Veea Group, they're here. Hi, Luke. Hi, you're on. They're up next. And then after that, we're going to have a panel discussion that really looks at what to study and where. So we're going to dig a bit deeper into 3 different companies that can help your Luke, if you could just mute for 1 second. There's a bit of an echo on my side. But they can really help you as a teacher get your kids exposed to all the things that they qualify to study as. It also incorporates amazing things like bursaries and loans and where to find them and what they need to qualify for them, all on single platforms or multiple platforms if you'd like to use all of them. They're all quite complementary as well. So we're going to have a quick look through that in a while. The last thing we will be doing today is we have some breakout rooms set up. These are going to be with some of the companies that you've seen in the last 2 sessions. So if you're excited about what Yenza said last week, or you're excited about what Veea Group presents or 3RC presents, or what Eduvelopment presents today, you can jump in for a quick 10-minute further demonstration of their platform so that you can have a better holistic view of all those platforms and what they can offer for your classes and for your school. But for now, we are going to hand over to Luke. Luke is from Veea Group. Veea Group is very excited to pilot with some of your schools their incredible program, which he can do a far better justice to explaining than I can. But in chats with Veea Group, I've really seen they're doing incredible things in the UK. And because the UK schooling and our schooling are quite alike, they've taken the step over to our wonderful sunnier Africa borders. And Luke is going to take a bit of time to explain better to you what Veea Group is doing. So Luke, you can unmute and get going.
Cool, thanks Ashley. Good to meet everyone, and thank you for taking the time to hear us speak. For me, I'm going to save my presentation until the demo room, so we'll open up our programs and some of the things that we've delivered previously, and hopefully bring all that to life for you and answer any questions there and then. But what I wanted to do in the 10 minutes is really just introduce the company and explain the rationale, explain what we do, how we've done it previously, and really the purpose in terms of the journey that we're on, and why South Africa really resonates with us as a business, and what we've been doing over the last 12 months since we've been on the ground, well, virtually with COVID. But for me, I set Veea up back in 2012, initially in Australia. And previously, for me, my background, I'd owned an executive coaching business, and primarily dealing with C-suite leaders, CEOs of multinational corporations, and by proxy of the age demographic of those people, a lot of the time they had sons and daughters who were either at university or in the process of leaving university and starting out on their career pathway. And occasionally, nepotistically, they'd ask for help in that realm, and can I get their son or daughter onto X graduate scheme or into X investment bank or law firm? And so I initially designed a program to help students like that, and kind of brought it back to the UK from Australia with me, and started lecturing at Oxford and Cambridge and London School of Economics. And I think as part of that process, I could see businesses literally queuing in cases round the corner to engage with these students. And actually, they didn't need that much help. They just needed to understand the process. But really, for me, what awoke was probably my moral compass, in the sense of asking, well, is this a level playing field? And what support do other universities get? And what support do people who aren't at university get? And how can we create something that, yes, absolutely recognises talent and recognises experience and extracurricular, but also creates opportunities for those who might not have been afforded them? And so I designed a training program, which was based on 3 core facets, and they were corporate readiness, which basically is the transition from education into the workplace, and in the sense of what we'll come on to talk about, the transition from school into university with a view to the workplace. Employability, in terms of understanding what organisations are looking for and being able to articulate yourself within a process, and then self-awareness in terms of emotional intelligence, recognizing emotions within yourself, being able to articulate emotions, but also recognizing those traits in other people. And for us, the program grew and grew, and grew in 2 different segments. So the first was actually delivering this training into schools and universities across the UK, across Europe, and further afield across Asia and in America. And still to date, we have over 50,000 students a year complete the training program from really around 15 years old upwards. Alongside that, though, the element that we needed to bridge the gap on was, how do we actually then work with this talent and engage businesses, and how do we align it all? And the short answer was that initially we used the diversity and inclusion element to assist businesses strategically to look at how they brought diverse groups of young people into their business. And that led us then to, over the last 6 years, design, build and manage some of the largest graduate programs in the world for the likes of Ernst & Young, PwC, HSBC, JLL. And for us, that's, I think, our biggest USP, in the fact that we've worked with over 500 companies globally designing their early careers programs. And we understand what it is that's on their agenda, and then can translate that back in the form of training, careers guidance, insights and engagements, and ultimately bringing opportunities to people who might not have been afforded them, but also might not know that they exist. And I've been lucky enough now to work in the majority of major cities in the world, delivering these programs. And in every city without fail, there are always a large proportion of young people who have grown up in view of a city skyline. And whilst they might be able to see it out of their bedroom window and even draw it out of their bedroom window, they don't know how to break into it. And they don't know what life in that circle is like. And so for us, that's really what the aim of our programs is, to really bring it to life, let people see it, let people feel it. Particularly some of these presentations over the last couple of weeks have really resonated with me, because as professions change, as new professions come to life, historically, and I suppose usually, growing up, you rely on your parents, your teachers, your families for inspirations as to which pathways you might go down. And if these are first-time professions, how do they ever get the attention that the person might be brilliant for, but they might not just know about it? And to give you a couple of live examples, so we're working with the largest global real estate company in the world. Now, students might not know their brand or their name when they start out. And they might not know actually that the role of a surveyor is actually quite similar in some ways to the role of an accountant or a consultant. It's very client facing. There's a lot of data. It's being able to understand if it's valuing a building, for instance, how you construct that valuation, what that looks like, and then how you present that back to the client in terms of finding solutions and problem solving. Now, the way early careers globally is conditioned, and the big thing for us about entering South Africa 18 months ago was a lot of our clients are aligning their early career strategy globally. So what they're doing in the UK or New York or Singapore, they want to be doing and reciprocating in every country where they're hiring either apprentices or graduates. And so for us, it was important that we had that mechanism to be able to deliver that. But also what we're seeing is the same issues arise wherever young people are based, in whatever city or whatever country it is. A 17-year-old or a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old, generally you can break down their skills and spot the deficiencies or spot the areas of strength generally. And that's what our programs are designed to look at and to investigate and change. So a lot of the core strategies that businesses are working with us on and have been doing now for a few years is very much early identification, in the sense of the earlier that we can plant the seed and make the connection, the longer we have to bring that role to life, the longer we have to create a realistic perception of what this industry is like, what your career would look like, and where you will get to. You will see it, you will feel it, you will speak to people, you will experience it. And by the time you leave university, you will already have a very clear understanding of what it is that you're getting yourself into. And therefore, as a result, from a retention perspective, you're likely to stay in that business longer. From a cultural perspective, you're more likely to be immersed in the organization already. And from a skill set perspective, you're already likely to be further ahead in terms of the skills that you need. A couple of presentations have already picked up on the fact that hiring directly from school generally gives you somebody who comes out further along in 3 years' time than you would if you went to university and entered at the same point. And the reality is that it's because people are ingrained in that business for 3 years. They build a network, they get first-hand experience, and there is a big difference often between the university courses and what's taught in theory and what's taught practically in a company. And within a lot of the countries that we're in, a lot of the businesses are pressurizing the universities to really adapt their curriculums. And I'll stay with the real estate example, but for instance now, the top businesses, the very kind of global players, would seldom get involved in smaller valuations. They do the big portfolio stuff. And with technology now, they can get involved in everything. But by nature of that, actually what they're looking at is, okay, what is the next step for a surveyor? Can they utilize data? Do they have the abilities to manipulate data and turn that into strategy? And actually, does that then change the whole realm of what a surveyor looks like and also what the course is being taught in? And of course, the answer is yes. If businesses are heavily involved and investing in prop tech, there needs to be a drill down to the students. And so that's what we are looking to do with our careers curriculum. The careers curriculum effectively is a full suite of careers tools, guidance platforms, parent engagements that either we personally deliver or we bring in the businesses to deliver as part of their wider early identification strategies. And we completely customize, as Ashley said, the curriculum around the school in terms of your time, in terms of your students, and in terms of the traditional pathways in terms of where your students go, but also in terms of where preferences may lay, where students are studying. And actually what we've seen in the UK, we now work with over 500 schools. And from a business perspective, it's enabled us, one, to manage over 1 million graduate applications per year, but also now we're equating that number to the apprenticeship. So on average, the people are making a more informed choice, both the parents, the teachers, the students, as to, is university the right way to go? Are there apprenticeships that better fit my needs in terms of my career aspirations? And linking the differing professions to them as people in terms of their personalities, in terms of their motivations, their drivers, their purpose, but ultimately teaching them that as a prerequisite skill set, because it isn't a here and now. It isn't when you're 17, you need to be able to interview. It is a life skill. And the sooner that people understand that and are confident in that, be it in terms of effective communication, be it enabling themselves to talk about teamwork or leadership, or resonating with resilience, or dealing with anxiety, or understanding how they manage their own time or where they're trying to get to, that's all part of the program, which is then linked back through businesses in terms of career drivers, aspirations, and guidance.
Thank you so much, Luke. Luke, one quick question. What would a starting point of a school be? I know that they can contact you in the polls and indicate to you that they would like you to come and have a discussion, but what does the journey really look like to start with when you approach a school? Just in 2 minutes.
So very quickly, I think I'll demonstrate it in the demo room as well, but realistically, it's literally just jumping on a Zoom call and understanding more about what the school is doing currently, and then we will go away and build something around that. There is actually no cost for the businesses in terms of, as you said, it's a pilot, so for the first 20 schools that we work with, there will be absolutely no cost. For the schools who come in after that, there will be a small administrative cost, but that's the general premise. It would be a conversation when things get back to normal and we can meet face to face, brilliant, but for the time being, it would be a digital conversation.
Wonderful, great, awesome, and very exciting. I've personally been through quite a lot of Veea Group's curriculums that they built for other schools and that, and it really is an incredible mix between good theory, good personal insight into the individuals and how unique each one of us are. It's extremely built for diversity and inclusion, and I love that aspect. And what it spoke to me, especially in our context, in our country where we are rich and diverse and incredible, I can say that I love South Africa and every South African, and yeah, so I'm very excited about it. But it also brings an incredible practical element of this view on industry, so equipping a child today with this insight on where am I going and what could that look like? But what does that really practically look like? So very excited about what Veea Group is doing in terms of this in our country and just the piloting that they're going to start rolling out. So if you're excited to possibly look at piloting Veea Group in your school or just want to start that conversation, please can you respond in the polls, and then that we can connect you with Veea Group and they can take this a step further. I see there's a question about this being recorded. Yes, if you are on right now but you missed the beginning, it will be it will just actually buffer and start playing all over again. So you'll see my face pop back up and you can watch the point that you missed in the beginning where you joined. Luke, I am going to leave you on and invite Jared on. If you want to pop back on, and Kay, you can pop back on. We are going to wrap up today's session. It's just another couple of, a bit of a panel expert discussion now, where we're going to really look at what students should study, where they should study. We're going to look at parents' involvement in that, as well as a skills-based kind of structure. But what I wanted to quickly say is that at the end of the session, not to miss out on, is that if you are interested in bringing one of these companies in to add and incorporate into your curriculum, we're really excited to have you do so. And so we would like you to join in the breakout rooms. We're going to post the links in the chat right from here. You'll push straight into a breakout room of the company of your choice. So stick around for that. Right now, I'm going to go on to our panel expert discussion. Luke, thank you so much. We will see you. He has a demo room where he can show you more of how they incorporate the product into their curriculum straight after this. So thanks, Luke. You must have a good little break. And I'm going to jump straight into our panel expert discussion. So Jared from Yenza, if you weren't with us last week, please watch the recording. You can do so by going onto our past sessions. Or if you were registered, you would have got a link for that for last week. So search your inbox. You can go through that link and you can watch that session on demand as long as you were registered. We're going to kick off with Yenza. So Jared, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Jared, really this session is all about what to study and where, like I said, but we know that last week you really touched on, and it was an extremely insightful session on the skills-based economy that is kind of developing and in progression of coming to the forefront of how our economy is changing. So what does a highly skills-based person look like? What is this person, kind of the attributes of it, and where do our students and learners that kind of fit into this mold, where do they acquire more skills? Where do they develop their skills? Is it going to a traditional university? What does that look like? If you can touch on these aspects, go take it away.
Cool. I'll keep it relatively short because I think I touched on quite a lot of that in the presentation last week. But I think also, firstly, you really resonate with what Kay was saying around, non-traditional routes to acquire skills. I completely agree. One of our taglines at Yenza is you don't need a degree to succeed. And whilst we don't discourage people from, getting qualifications, it's still very important. We also do want to encourage people because we believe it's positive development that you can acquire specific skills and that will be seen as credible in the jobs market. And so there are many places that one can go. They're called MOOCs, these micro accreditation courses online, the likes of Udemy, Coursera. Even universities now have had to pivot themselves where they offer a variety of short online courses. We all know the success story of Get Smarter, one of the biggest success stories of any technology company coming out of South Africa. So the good news is that there are many, many places to go. The one thing I will say is it's important to make sure you're acquiring skills that are seen as credible in the jobs market. So there are many, many courses that one can do. There are many skills many training programs that one can take. And whilst that is very useful to the individual, you also have to, understand that will an employer actually recognize that as a credible acquisition of skill? That is the reality, and that's what employers look at when they look at qualification, and the same goes for skill acquisition.
Jared, I quickly want to ask, I know that when we were chatting a while back looking at this, you showed me a bit of stuff actually on your Yenza platform that helps develop some of these skills that if kids walk out of school and they've gone through the Yenza process, that they would have some of these defined skills that could set them kind of, I want to say, they catapult them or catalyst them into walking into a skills-based economy in an easier manner. Could you show us that quick? I'd love us to quickly see some of that on Yenza so that everyone has a better idea of what Yenza can actually do to help in class equip your students with some of these really vital skills that we've heard so much being talked about in the last two sessions.
Sure. So at this stage, we're actually in the process of integrating the skills courses into our platform, and we're doing that across a variety of different providers, both locally and globally. What I can share with you now is just, and I think Lelani mentioned it, around making sure kids go through a process of discovery. I think that's very important, and I think engaging people and enabling people to go through that process is where you see the results. So what I can do is just show you, again, a little bit of a sneak preview into the product. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see my, yeah?
Yeah, you can see.
So within our platform, we've got a variety of assessments. We've got a vocational aptitude assessment, personality traits, EQ and IQ, and they're all very engaging and very contemporary, as some may have seen last week. But what I'll do now is just to jump into one of our, we call them Explorer tools, and I'll stick to subject choice because I know that that's actually quite pertinent to what's going on right now with schools, with grade 9s needing to select subjects. And we've got the very same tool that is designed for the tertiary environment. So what we do with these Explorer tools is, as I say, we allow people to go through a process. And what we try to do is make sure that that process is as easy and as unoverwhelming, if that's a word, as possible, because often the navigation and the process is what detracts someone or demotivates someone, because it just becomes overwhelming and too much information. So what we do with our Explorer tools is we anchor them based on the person's interests. So we call that your worker type, and each worker type is mapped to what we call career clusters. So you can change your worker type, and then it's mapped to a different set of career clusters. And then within that career cluster, you get a breakdown, you get subject recommendations, and you get career examples. And we're going live with a new version where you can click into specific careers, and then you get the breakdown of compulsory and recommended subjects, as well as common courses that someone can link into. So yeah, I'm not going to take up more time than that because I know we're pressed on time, but that's just a nice indicator for you. And then I suppose while we're here, one last thing to show you is, and something that I think is often missing in the career space, is career information. So again, Lelani mentioned something that I think is very important, which is the balance between self-knowledge and career knowledge. And I think what's often very much missing is the career knowledge piece. So what we've also done within our platform is we've detailed careers in depth, but we've also made it very engaging and easy for people to understand important things like job growth, future-proof, stress levels, progression, qualification. So various things that are important considerations when deciding on one's career.
Awesome. Jared, thank you so much. It's so exciting. If you want to see more of that, then straight after this, we're going to jump into breakout rooms where companies are actually going to demo and answer all of your possible questions you might have for the session. So that's awesome. Thank you. We're very excited. Jared, thanks a lot. We'll see you in the breakout room a little bit later. I'm going to drop you off. And then we're going to move over to Veea. Veea, welcome. Veea is from Eduvelopment. The whole time when Veea demoed, when he demoed his program to me, I kept shouting quite excitedly in my office. Everyone thought I was crazy. Why didn't they have this when I was a student? I studied politics. I went into ministry afterwards, and I ended up in business. I mean, I'm literally that trajectory of woo. I think that we would have narrowed the crazy woo down if someone had a tool like Eduvelopment has produced. So, Veea, I hope you get the same reaction out of everyone else as I had when I first saw your tool. But yes, I'm sure everyone's going to be very excited. So I'm going to let you kick off. And I want to ask you some questions. So how does your platform help educators guide, firstly, their students through their personal study options? Then how do your platforms help educators guide their students through their career choices? And thirdly, and probably one of my favorite things that I saw, because this information is difficult to find, is how does your platform then guide them through bursaries and loans? So you can kick off. I will leave it there for you, and I'm excited.
Cool, thanks, Ash. I'm going to share my screen, and then I can quickly just show you what our platform on the backside of it. So the first thing I think that we help, where we can help, is definitely with our subject chooser. I think the challenge we have, and educators, parents, children, they don't really know what the impact of their decisions, what the impact is if they make a decision, for instance, if you go from math to math literacy or whatever the case may be. So on the left-hand side here on my screen, you can see that we then have the options for the children and parents. Obviously, they can do this together and see if I select, obviously, life orientation, maths, and your languages are compulsory. But then you can select your subjects that the school offers. So I'm going to use this as an example: life sciences, business studies, and physical science. And then it shows me the career field. It shows me the amount of possible available careers. So if I go, for instance, in engineering, on the right-hand side, I get 61 different available careers if I look at the subjects on the left. So if I go into an architect, it gives me the definition of what it's all about. So this is a good indication for a child and parent to see. But for instance, what if I'm not really into the physical science thing? I want to change that for geography. What does it mean? So then you can see, for instance, in engineering, it tells you, wow, there's minus 45 available careers in that specific field. But if you look at finance, physical science did nothing. So it's a good indication for a parent to say, okay, but maybe this is a good move. You must choose this subjects. Or if you choose math lit, then it tells you in finance, it's a big influence, because maths has really got a big influence if you go into the finance. But for instance, in law, it doesn't have a big influence. So I think that's the very nice tool that we have for the subject choosers. And then if I can share another screen, I can just show you what we do for the career options, typically for the higher grade 10, 11, 12. So here you have your subjects on the left, and as again, you can edit this as obviously everyone has different subjects. And then you enter your mark. So for life orientation, I use this mark just as an example: maths, English, Afrikaans, and then obviously also the languages that are the subjects that I'm interested in. And I tell the system, please show me then possible career options. And then it pops out all universities in Southern Africa or in South Africa. And it gives me, for instance, at Nelson Mandela University, there's 118 possibilities. So I can then go in, for instance, if you look at Stellenbosch University, there's 86. So I can go into one of them and see what it's all about and see the APS score, my required, and what's compulsory. And also it gives me an idea of what I can, other possible occupations I can do with that job. But this is a lot of information for a child. So what the nice tool is, you can actually go to occupations on the right, and you can then search by specific. I want to become an architect, and with these subjects and marks, can I do it? Yes, you can do it at these universities. So University of Pretoria, I can go in there. It tells me my APS score should be 27 minus 30, and what's compulsory is maths of 50 and physical science of 59. Now, what I also can do, what's very strong about this thing, I can then see there's the list of the universities that I qualify for. But I can also then go into this specific page where it tells me an architect. It gives me the rundown of what it's all about, what a typical work day requires, personal requirements, very important, employment details, and very strong where I can study it. So then I can go to the list where I qualify and then look at where I can study. So that is then the second part of the platform that I wanted to showcase. And then your third question, Ashley, I would then also just give you a share screen on that, where I can give you the rundown of where we help parents with the biggest, obviously, issue that they have, especially in these times, and that is the bursary part of it. So you can see we can do it by country or by organization, but I like the study fields the most. So in study fields, if your child wants to study architecture, for instance, you can search it and say, show me all bursaries available for architecture. We can use other examples, for instance, accounting. Obviously, there would be a lot more. And then you can go in here and it gives you all the detail, when's the close, when's the deadline, and all that. So I think the information that we give to parents in terms of, where they can apply for bursaries, a specific field, or you can even do it by specific companies, and you just search it and it narrows it down. Now, a very nice thing about our platform, and I'll stop share for this, is where We also have a video library of probably close to 400 universities, colleges, private academies, where I think it's important for a parent, if a child gets application, you can apply for a certain degree at certain university, but he does not have any idea of what it looks like, campus tours. I think it's important for those parents to, if I send my child 1,000 kilometers from here, I would want to see the place. So we've got interviews with students, campus tours, faculty tours. And then the last thing, and I think this also, and this is where a child and a parent can look at what resonates with the child, is we have in our video library, we have a day in the life of video of every job out there. So that if I want to become a lawyer, I can literally go and see the day in the life of a lawyer and say, wow, but this really speaks to me. It's not what I saw on this TV series, or, it's quite different to what my dad does, whatever the case may be. But when I was at Paul Roos 2 weeks ago, I asked some of the kids, what are you going to do after school? And the one boy said, I'm going to become a CA. And I said, oh, okay, well, you like finance, and what's the reason behind it? And he said, no, my dad's one. So are we still in that space where you do what your parents does, or do you want to, do what you want to do? And I think that's where I just want to end up by saying where Alex left off last week, is we want to get the 360 view of every child, where we see this is what you're good at, this is what you like, and this is the industry you fit in. So go and explore and find your perfect way. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Veea. If you're interested to see more of that incredible platform, won't you jump onto the breakout room that we're going to post in a few more minutes, or in a few minutes, and you can jump in and see a bit more. And actually, Veea will take you step by step through the platform, and also the costing around it, who it's available to, and all of that. So thank you, Veea. We'll see you in those breakout rooms in just a minute. And then lastly, Kay, I think Veea touched on it really well, is the necessity to have parents involved in the process of a student's development and their choice around what to study. Can you just, we've discussed this, but what is your experience around parents actually being a hindrance, and how do we as educators overcome that? So can you just give us some really good raw advice on how do we work with parents better to show them what is actually the best study option for our kids? Oh, sorry, Kay, you are muted. You just unmute, please.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Awesome. Just want to say to Jared and Veea, what amazing platforms. It's absolutely I'm doing the same thing as Ashley. I'm like, why wasn't that around when I was at school? So firstly, to answer your question with regards to the parents, we have seen that it is our major hindrance. It is exactly that. It's, what are you going to study after school? I'm going to be a CA. Why? Because mom and dad's a CA, or mom and dad's a doctor, or mom and dad's an accountant. That has not changed in 20 years. And I don't see it changing very quickly. What we need from our side, and I'm speaking for people like myself and Veea and Jared, would be for teachers to step in here and for us to start talking about careers and personal development and knowing oneself from a very young age. And this could go even into primary school, but to definitely have a connection with the parents to make them understand that there's more to life than the big five. And we always refer to the big five, because most people that have kids now are my age, or a little bit older, a little bit younger. And that means we went through our matric phase in the late 80s, beginning 90s. And at that stage, that was what was available. You know, as a woman, it was definitely, you either can go into doctor, nursing, accounting, law. And there was never even a discussion around, would there be an opportunity to be an entrepreneur? Would there be an opportunity to go overseas and become an au pair for a few years to find yourself and figure out really what it is that you like and what it is what you want to do? So I believe it is a big part of our teachers' work is to help us in this process. There are actually so many tools available at the moment that can be used in school for parents, and it's a matter of making it available to them and making them know about it. I'm convinced that there's so many parents out there that still think those are the only options. And it means that we just need to push a little bit harder and market a little bit more. And there we're going to need our teachers.
Awesome. I love that. I think you probably ended on my highlight of the session. We need our teachers. It's a truth, and I am a parent, and I think some days my most appreciated person in my life is my kids' teachers. So we do need our teachers. As parents, we need you to guide us, to help us, to take our hand, especially when it comes to our kids. And I think the educators out there spend so much time with our kids that they see many sides of them that we don't, not every day. So thank you, Kay. Thanks for a lot of insight today. We're excited. And if you want to contact and connect with Kay, please do so either in the demo room by jumping into 3RC's demo room or in the polls that we've posted. Connect with them there. That is actually the end of us today. So Kay, I'm going to say goodbye. It's the end of us today, and we would like to, well, it's the end of us here and live. We'd like to let you know that you did receive your invitation to next week Thursday's event in your inbox already. So look out for that from Livestorm. We've zapped you in, and so your link to connect into that is in your inbox, but it'll also be sent out the morning of and an hour before the session. So don't miss those emails, and come and join us for next week, where we're really going to focus on learner development for learners that possibly aren't going to go to university or a private institution, and a whole lot of other very insightful and cool topics with great speakers. So if you would like to now jump into either Yenza, Veea Group, Eduvelopment, or 3RC's demo rooms, there you're going to be able to ask questions that will be answered, and see a bit more of their platforms and their programs that they have available to your schools. Jump into Veea Groups if you would like to possibly take the step further of having their pilot in your school. But otherwise, a ginormous thank you for joining us today. We hope that there's just a bit of more insight, a bit of community here. We really appreciate each of you being here, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Go ahead and share this with friends or other educators that you know. It is recorded and it is on demand, so the same registration link that they used to get on today, you can share with friends. And yes, we would like to see you next week on that. Thank you very much, and that is us for today. We'll see you in those breakout rooms in just a minute.